welcome back, and here we have our two C24s. This one over here is the completely stock built one from the kit. This one here is the second one we built with some modifications and the snazzy paint job and wheel arches extended. This is the battery we've been using on both. It's a 2-cell 1200 milliamp LiPo. There you go, that's the battery we've been using. We've never really run these out when we're running the trucks. They go on and on and on. Anyway, so that's the power we've been using. This one, as I said, is completely stock with a 180 motor. It's a very nice high torque gearbox. All the electronics are tucked under there. We'll open one up and have a look at what I've been using. You can just see from this view the difference between the tyres, and I owe Faye an apology because these wheels are off of the Faye FY02. They're not JJRC, which is what I think I said in the last video, but they're certainly doing the job. The other thing with these wheels is, for those of you that do some mods and some weighting, is there's so much room between the rims there to get some weight in. It's a little bit of a squeeze on the WPLs. But on that subject, these chassis are not weighted at all, not on the chassis and not on the wheels. I have put a weight, as you've seen in one of the previous videos, which is actually a stainless steel door handle in the front of this one, which I just made some slots and it just fits in there and holds itself. That's about 35 grams. That's very good for climbing, the weight on the front, but that's removable and adjustable. On this one we put no weights on it yet, but I may well put some weights inside this front bumper. The other great advantage, this is the one that's got the C14 bumper and headlight and grille on the front of it. The other great advantage of putting that part on there is that that flex, because this is more of a rubber part than that kit, makes this so much easier to get on and off the chassis. And now the company WPL are making the C24 version 2, I think it's called, which is basically this setup, and I think that's probably a good way forward. And they come in white, which is a nice blank palette. One of the things I love about these, I was thinking about it, is they have no box art other than just the red plastic or the blue plastic that you can get them in. So there's no standard to shackle you when you come to painting your own. Anyway, that's just my thoughts for the day. What I'm going to do is just go through what I did on the standard one mods wise. I have shown you this before, I believe. I put some small nylon washers into this joint here, really just to stop them rattling. It has forced out the shock absorbers a little bit because they won't fit right into the frame because the holes are a little bit small and I didn't widen them out. But basically, even though they're at a slightly jaunty angle, there's no problem with the suspension operation at all. And for those of you who haven't seen these kits before, because I know I've got some of my Eve subs etc watching these videos now, it has a 4-link suspension front and rear. There's the drive shafts from the central gearbox to the front and rear. Basically, these are matching units. They're very easy to make and put together. Once you've made one of these, you can put a whole kit together in about 20 minutes tops. Very simple. The other mod I did was to stick these pieces of Velcro on the top, because I thought some of the noise was that hitting the bottom of the bed. It's not. It is just these joints here. On this one I had a different solution. The eagle-eyed amongst you may notice this isn't the standard rear end. I'm using this to build the next build on, just as a chassis to put the body on while I'm matching it up and putting it together. So that's relevant to that, just to get your imaginations tingling. On the standard kit, I was told, I've read, that the drive shaft, these pins are quite a problem in here, that they wear out and that's what breaks the drive shafts. I may be wrong. These kits have been very updated from the reviews you see of a lot of them that are a year or 2 years old. The drive shafts are different, the gears are different. These are metal gears in these axles now. The kit's been greatly evolved and greatly improved over time. But the point I was going to make is, what I've done as part of my preventative maintenance is just get some good old oil and just put a little bit in these joints, just to oil those pins, but you don't want too much. Okay, and then we're going to wipe off the really excess with a little bit of kitchen roll, which I already did actually, but the phone ran out of memory. What we're going to do then, and I recommend you do this when you didn't do a build, and you can even do this before you put the electronics in. What I've got here is just one of those little battery holders. I got these from Maplin's or somewhere. So I've got two AA batteries in there, 2.4 volts, just with some crocodile clips connected up, and we're literally going to use these like jump leads. So if you can imagine, when you first put everything together, the drivetrain, if 2.4 volts will turn the whole drivetrain over nicely, then you know you haven't really got a problem. So let's have a go. And it also is going to get the oil into the joints. If anything jams up or there's any funny noises, you're much better off doing it with 2.4 volts than you are with 7.4 or 6. And also for the motor, it's quite a nice way of running in the motor a little bit. If you imagine a brand new motor, what can I demonstrate with? This hubcap is the shaft of the motor, and this is one of the bushes. There's a pair of these, positive and negative. So you've got a new bush is going to be square on there. It needs to wear in a little bit. If you do that straight away on full power, it can shorten the life of the motor. So if you just wear it in a little bit, it's going to put a little bit of a curve into the front of the bush, make a nicer contact, and be a little bit less hard wearing on the motor than it would be if you just put it all together fresh and start thrashing about. Anyway, that's enough of that little demonstration. Let's see if this actually works, shall we? There we are. So 2.4 volts, and I literally just left that till the rechargeable batteries ran out when I first built it. It's a nice way of just running everything in. So there's a little tip for you, a way to just check your drivetrain before you start putting the power in. As I say, because you're just directly putting these clips onto the motor terminals, you don't even need to have put the electronics into a kit yet. So the only other thing I'll just show you is the angle, just in case you haven't built one yourself, like I've ended up setting the steering arm to. On both kits they sit the same, so I guess that's roughly where they need to sit. So it's not quite dead center. The steering is off center because of where the servo is, so that's why you're kind of compensating for setting the arm back a little bit this way. The other limitation on both kits, actually, you can see it quite well here, is that this bottom of the gearbox case is the lowest point. If we could raise this up to match the bottom of the chassis, that would be ideal. And that is a mod I've seen done. David at Run That RC's done it. I know Liam's probably done it too. And we're going to do that on the third build. We're going to get to that. You can do it on either of these builds, raise this up, but you need to cut out the bottom of the body. And I found a way accidentally of not needing to do that. So I think that's everything I need to say about the standard kit. Any questions or any comments, please just put them down below. Right, so now we've got the second kit. This is the one with a 2-speed gearbox that we've been running with this body. The first difference is I've changed the mod on the suspension mount to cutting off some slivers of vacuum pipe from the car spare parts. I mean the real car. Which fits perfectly. It allows the suspension to sit nice and straight. So it looks a bit better. It takes a lot of the free movement out, but none of the travel out of the suspension. And all of the noise out of the suspension. So they're just some bits of rubber hose just cut. They're not very accurately cut, as you can see, but they are doing the job. Underneath we have metal drive shafts. So I've got those. I have a box of spares. I'm pleased to say I've got spare motors, spare drive shafts, bits and pieces. They may be very handy very soon. We'll talk about that in a moment. The 2-speed gearbox, I'm just going to demonstrate. I'm going to connect the car to a battery and then switch it on, which I need a tool to do because the switch on the speed controller is a little bit short. I am going to put a screw in there so it's a bit easier to use. Oh, and by the way, that's the only screwdriver you need for this entire build. I do have one with a bigger handle so you can get a little bit more torque on it. I wouldn't ever use an electric screwdriver on these screws really, because you're screwing into plastic, and if you've crossed the thread or something, you're just going to rip it out. So that is all you need, one screwdriver. The only other tool I've used is this for the Allen keys, just to mount the drive shafts. And don't forget to put some thread lock in these because they will come loose if you do not. So that's the only other tool I've got, the only specialist tool, if you can count that as a specialist tool. So we're switched on. The RC unit I've got in here is 4-channel. It is called Ostar Hobby. We're going to call it Ostar Hobby. It's a 4-channel unit. It works very nicely. You need channel 3 for the gear change, and as you saw there, I've got a push button on here to change gear. I'll lift this up so you can see the servo mounted at the back of the gearbox. Moves this arm, moving from high speed to low speed gear. In comparison to the standard gearbox with the 180, the 180 gearbox is exactly in the middle speed wise. So the fast gear on here is it's noticeably faster than the 180, and the low speed on here is slower than the 180. At the end of this video, I will put a little drag race of the two in both modes, just so you can see that for yourselves. But anyway, that's how the gearbox works. We've got a 370 motor in here, which is a big old motor for this kind of scale, and it is putting out a lot of torque. That may well lead, because bear in mind the rest of this kit is standard at the moment apart from the drive shaft, to breakages. In fact, it may have already done that. That's something we're going to have a look at. I'll show you now. So if you look, we've got locked differentials on these kits, which is great for the off-road work. The tyre's not on straight from earlier, but that's just temporary. So if I turn any of these wheels, all of the wheels will turn, because they're all linked together, no differentials. But when I turn this wheel, not very much happens. In fact, I can get that wheel will just go round and the whole thing's spinning. It's the hub that actually seems to have come off the axle somehow. So next video, we're going to take this apart and have a look at the mechanics. I'll also show you the lube I use when I use the build, do the build. We'll see what's broken in here. I think the actual plastic hub part, the hex part of the drive shaft, has come away from the actual axle. That's what I'm guessing from what I'm seeing, but it may well be that we're literally putting a bit too much. I've also driven this very hard and at very high speed. Maybe putting a bit too much force on some of those standard components, but that's okay. That's what we're here to find out. As you'll see again, we've got that issue of the gearbox hanging down quite low compared to the rest of the frame. So if that could come up, that would be handy. I'm going to take this top cover off quickly and just show you the electronics that I've fitted. I've got the same speed controller in both of them, which is a 30 amp speed controller. They seem very popular. They cost about £8 each. It's quite a mess in here because I haven't really trimmed and cut the wires properly. I'm going to do that when I'm stripping it down to do the maintenance. There is a switch on these speed controllers that turns the brake on and off. It's not really clear from the instructions or the product information, but that's what that switch does. Brakes off there, brakes on there, and obviously the brakes are very handy, especially the way we're using these. There's the receiver. The lights plug straight into the 4th channel for now. I'm not using the 4th channel for anything else. And the other little tip is to keep the servo down nice and securely. I've used one of the spare arms and the screw. It's a long screw out the servo kit. If you put the long screw from the servo kit in that end, you can use one of the spare screws from the kit, and there are loads of spare screws in the kits. That's brilliant, to hold that end down. And the same for in here. The rubber grommet and the little brass bushing come out of the servo kit too. So all the bits you need to build this are in the box basically, apart from the electronics and the battery. The gearbox came from the C24 KM kit, which was actually the first kit that arrived here. All I've done to it so far is look at it and go, cool, that's lovely. Steal the gearbox and steal the tyres for another project. But anyway, that's a story for another day. So we're going to do a quick kind of burnout drag test comparison, just to get an idea of the difference between the two gearboxes. So obviously we've got 1 speed on the red guy. He's got a 2-speed gearbox, so we're going to try both speeds and just see where they fit with each other. So let's get on with this speed test. So, ready, steady, go. Right, so we do need to sort the trim out, but as you can see, the red guy is fastest when the 2-speed is in its low speed gear. Right, ready, steady, go. Oh, and there's nothing in it, so That's why I put the 2-speed in that guy, the wide body guy. He's the one that's going to go a bit quicker. He looks like he can go a bit quicker. In the last video I promised you a little sneak peek at the next project. Here it is. It's actually a C14 front end with a C24 grille and headlights and a B1, although it's actually a Fayee 01 bed. Scratch built frame is taking shape. We'll be back soon. This has been dented, battered, twisted and torn. It's going to be a good one. So if you found this useful or enjoyed the video, please do leave it a like, tell your friends about it, subscribe if you want to stay in touch, and comment if you've got any questions or suggestions. For now, bye bye.